I am still buying a Switch 2. The title of this video may get some people mad, and this video is definitely biased because I have a PC that can run all of the AAA games that I would ever want to play. And I know I'm late to this topic for sure, seeing as how we're already 11 days away from the Switch 2's release. But I just felt like sharing some of my thoughts on the Switch 2 and why even through all of it, I'm still going to buy it. Let me make it clear that I'm not defending Nintendo in this video and that these are just my own personal justifications for the stuff they've been doing recently, like the price increase on their games, game key cards, which are just Nintendo Switch 2 cartridges that give you a license to the game, expensive accessories for the console, the price of the console, and the recent change they've made to their terms of agreement, which from what I heard allows Nintendo to brick your entire console. So that last one is really something no one can defend, because at that point it infringes on your right as a consumer to buy a product and be able to do whatever you want with it. To start off, I guess the first thing to talk about is the console price. I don't think many people had a problem with this because we all saw this coming, and in another video that I made a while back talking about Switch 2 rumors, I predicted that it was probably going to be like $400. I was only off about $50, so the console being priced at $450 wasn't that big of a deal for me.
Have a happy your birthday, everyone likes you.
The next thing to talk about is the game prices going from $70 to $80. This was where a lot of people felt discontent with Nintendo, because this was where people didn't expect them to set a new precedence for new game prices, but also making this change come much faster than anticipated. It seems people had this idea that Nintendo were always the cheaper side of gaming, but if you've been a Nintendo fan for a long time now, you already know that this isn't the case, and that the few times that they did have lower prices for a console was either due to them having to decrease the price because of poor sales, or because they made a cheap variant of that console, such as the Wii Mini and the launch of the 3DS and Wii U. Nintendo has always been expensive. Now, that being said, game prices was something Nintendo usually didn't try to mess with until now. $80 for some of their titles is going to be the standard starting now, and while it is terrible to think that other AAA developers are going to see this and start pricing their own games, which are most likely going to be slop at $80, I think at the very least this will get people to start thinking about what they are actually willing to spend their money on, and stop paying for garbage games from garbage companies, as well as throwing away their money at microtransactions, battle passes, and quote-unquote pre-orders for digital games, which never made sense to me, because what exactly are you pre-ordering? The license? If you're gonna buy the game digitally anyways, then just get it when it launches on day one. When I think about it this way, I honestly don't feel bad for people, because they've been wasting their money and they're gonna keep doing it. And all in all, I personally am okay with spending $80 for Nintendo's first party IPs, because Nintendo makes great games and they almost never miss, because they don't use greedy tactics like that others in the gaming industry would use, like microtransactions, battle passes in a game you already paid for, like Black Ops 6, or releasing games that are broken on launch day only to promise that they will fix it later. Nintendo makes sure that their games are the most optimized and best quality they can make it to be before launch, because they put effort into the games they make and actually try. Also, quick note to the people that have been saying that games were going to be $90 for the physical copy, they're lying. Nowhere on Nintendo's official website or in the Direct did they say this was ever going to be the case, and I just thought I should nip this in the bud.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be jerking off a horse.
The Switch 2 accessory prices that Nintendo showed us, these are also expensive, but again, I feel like this has always been the case with official accessories from Nintendo. So my advice is just wait for the third-party carrying cases and stuff like that. And as for the webcam, I'm pretty sure you can use your own webcam and not have to use the one Nintendo provides you. Well, the one Nintendo provides you in order to purchase. Not that they give it to you in the box. As for the controller prices, yeah, those are too high. Joy-Cons cost $95 and the Pro Controller is $85. This should at least be the other way around. Make the controllers that are meant to be used with the console more affordable. micro SD express card is something new they're gonna be implementing as well, which is just an SD card with faster read and write speeds, which will allow you to download games at a faster speed, and loading times for games will also be much faster on it. Only problem is that you can't use any other micro SD card that is not a micro SD express card, so that means you'll have to spend more money on that. But at least Nintendo is giving you 256 gigabytes of storage day one to let you play some games at the very least. So
Tetosino Legoncino. Tetocini Legocini.
game key cards are game cartridges that don't actually hold the game data in them and are just a physical license to play the game. And this concept is nothing new, as Xbox and PlayStation have been doing this with their game discs for years now, and those also suck. Nintendo isn't doing anything new with this one, but it still sucks that they've fallen into this tactic as well. However, I don't think Nintendo did this for their first party titles. I think Nintendo did this so that third party developers can put their game on a Switch 2 cartridge without having to optimize their game to fit on the cartridge, thus technically having a physical copy that they can then sell to you. Another thing I want to touch upon is the interview with Doug Bowser, the president of Nintendo of America. When this interview was trending, so many people tried to say that this interview was comparable to the Don Matrick interview for the Xbox One back in 2013, saying that Doug called people poor because he basically said that people can just stick to their Switch Ones if they couldn't afford the console, which I mean is true, he's not wrong, but I don't think that these two situations are the same. The Xbox One was bad because it tried to be a media console instead of a game console and required constant online connection, whereas the Switch 2 is still a game console, and I think people were blowing this out of proportion. The interview really wasn't that bad, and people on Twitter really just like to bitch about anything. As for the new terms of agreement that Nintendo put out, it states that basically if they catch you modding your Switch 2 or the games even for offline use, they can remotely brick your console, from what I understand. And like I said before, this is something that is indefensible. It really is overextending their reach, trying to control everything, which sucks. But if you're like me and everyone else who mods their stuff to begin with, this only applies to the people who get caught. So do with that what you will. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. In the beginning, I said this video was a little biased, and that's because I have a PC capable of playing any AAA title or any graphically demanding games that you would want to get on a Xbox Series X or PS5. The Nintendo Switch 2 is the only game console worth getting in 2025, and that is because they have exclusive first-party games that you cannot get on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation. And while some people might hate the idea of exclusivity and think that it is an outdated practice, I completely disagree. I think exclusivity is what brings competition in the game industry and is what makes developers and game companies want to do better. It also provides a special experience that you can only get from that one game console and nowhere else, which makes it feel more worthwhile in my opinion. Obviously, crossplay between games is a good thing, and that should just be a standard for game companies that put their multiplayer titles on different platforms. But this isn't the case today, as Xbox and PlayStation just feel like slight upgrades to their previous generation, and I mean that's the whole point. It's supposed to be just better than the previous one. But to this day, they still put new games on their old consoles, with only a few exceptions. One example is Marvel Rivals. It cannot run on Xbox One or PS4 without having to tank the quality, so they didn't bother and just stuck to PS5 and Xbox Series X. With the Switch 1, however, they didn't do that. They stopped putting new games on the Wii U and focused on the Switch entirely, even porting some of the Wii U's games onto Switch 1 just so people could enjoy those games on their new console instead of the old one. And with the release of the Switch 2, which is definitely more powerful, they will not put new first-party games on the Switch 1 anymore, which gives you a reason to actually buy the Switch 2. And the Switch 2 will have games I can't play on my PC, which gives me a reason to actually own one. So for me, The Switch 2 will actually give me an exclusive experience from that of PC. I don't have a reason to get an Xbox or a PlayStation since all of their games will be on PC anyways. Even then, at the end of the day, I am just a big fan of Nintendo, always have been, and I've always had a great time playing on their consoles and their games growing up, so there's that. By the way, because of all this stuff that's been happening recently with Nintendo, there have been a bunch of people saying that the Great Pirate Era is happening, and those people are most likely the same people who don't even know how to torrent a file or download something without getting a Trojan virus. At the end of the day, these are just my thoughts on the Switch 2 and my reasons for still wanting to get one, but I'm curious of what you guys think. Do you agree with my thoughts and reasons, or do you disagree and think I'm just a Nintendo dick writer? If so, then write up an essay in the comments or just comment glizzy for those who made it to the end. And in conclusion, what happened to the Nintendo Switch 2 boycott? I swear these people are not real, man. All these fucking hypocrites. They bought the Switch 2 when they put them on pre-orders. I didn't even get the chance to get my Switch 2 pre-order. So to that I say, I fucking hate you guys. Subscribe, bozo.